Okay, so have you ever stopped to think about those tricky verbs do and make?
Oh, yeah.
They seem like they're really simple,
Yeah.
but then you start to think about it and you're like, why do we do homework
Right.
but make the bed?
It's so true. It's one of those quirky things about English that can even trip up native speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we're going to unpack those subtle differences between these two verbs.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll be able to navigate those situations
Well,
where you might get tripped up a little.
for sure.
We've got a stack of dictionaries and grammar guides
Yes.
and even some online language resources here to help us
Excellent.
untangle this whole grammatical mystery.
I like it. And by the end of this deep dive,
Yeah,
you'll be using do and make like a pro.
I love it. All right, so where do we even begin with this?
Well, I think a good rule of thumb is to think of do as the verb for action.
Okay.
It often goes hand in hand with activities, tasks, work, those things that you might have on your to-do list. Think like doing the laundry, doing a workout, or even doing your taxes.
Okay, so it's about getting things done, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you see this in some more colorful phrases too.
Okay.
Like doing time,
Okay.
which the Cambridge Dictionary points out is a slang term for being in prison.
Wow.
So it really emphasizes how do can be connected to actions
Yeah.
with serious consequences sometimes.
Yeah. That's a great example. And it is interesting because,
Yeah.
doing time isn't a physical activity
It's not a workout, no.
in the traditional sense, but it does still carry that weight of action and consequence.
Absolutely. Now, Intrepid English, have you heard of them?
I have not, no.
It's a website dedicated to English language learners.
Okay.
They had a really interesting observation that do is often used when we're talking about services.
Okay.
So doing someone's hair or doing someone's nails.
Interesting.
It's not just the physical act, but the service being provided.
That's a really good point. I've never even thought about it that way.
What's really fascinating is that do isn't always about completing something tangible.
Okay.
Like we do business with someone,
Right.
but the concept of business is more abstract.
Right. It's a process.
It is a process.
Okay, so if do is the action hero
Yes.
of verbs, then what about make? It feels like it has a whole different vibe.
You're absolutely right. If do is about taking action, then make is all about creation,
Yeah.
bringing something new into existence.
Right. So the obvious examples would be making a cake, making art.
Yes.
We're putting something out into the world.
Precisely.
Hmm.
But make goes beyond just physical objects.
Okay.
It can also often point towards the outcome, the result of an action.
Okay.
For example, we talk about making a fortune.
Right.
You're not physically building a pile of money, are you?
Right.
But that's the end result of your efforts.
Oh, I like that. So it's make implies a recipe.
Yes.
Even if it's not a literal one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making a decision, you're taking all these factors and you're sort of baking them into your choice.
Exactly. And just like with do, we see make popping up in some very expressive phrases.
Okay.
Instead of creating something physically,
Yeah.
you might be causing it to happen, like making a fuss.
Ah. So you're not crafting a tangible fuss, but
Yeah.
you're instigating it.
Exactly. It's the
Oh.
same with phrases like making a mess or making a noise.
Yeah.
These are all about causing something to exist that wasn't there before.
Wow. I'm really starting to see these connections
Yeah.
between all the ways that we use make. It's not just about, building a physical object,
Yeah.
but it's about bringing something into being.
Yeah.
Whether it's a cake or a decision
It's a great way to put it.
or even a little bit of a ruckus.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But as with most things in the English language,
Oh, yeah.
it's not always so clear-cut.
Yeah.
Right.
There are times when do and make seem to overlap or even switch places.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are the areas where things can get really interesting.
I bet. Okay, well, let's dig into those tricky areas
Okay.
where do and make seem to kind of blur the lines a little bit.
Right.
What about those times when you could use either verb,
Yeah.
but they have slightly different meanings? Tell me more.
Let's do it. So, you're talking about do for work and stuff.
Right, like doing your job, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But then there are these phrases like making a living or even making a career.
That's true. Yeah. And it does seem like in those cases, we're really kind of emphasizing that outcome
Yeah.
of the work. It's like the creation of a livelihood
Right.
rather than that actual action of working.
It's a very subtle shift. Yeah.
But it changes the nuance of the sentence.
Totally. And this actually reminds me of another example I was thinking about.
Okay.
Making a mistake versus doing something wrong.
Oh, interesting.
They both describe like errors,
Yeah,
but they feel very different.
they do. Making a mistake
Mm-hmm.
almost feels more specific,
Uh-huh.
like a slip up in action,
Yeah.
maybe unintentional.
Yes,
Yeah.
and doing something wrong feels so much heavier.
Yes. It's like a moral judgment. Like
Exactly.
you meant to do that. Yeah.
It really highlights how our choice of do or make, it really colors how we come across, I think.
It really does. Yeah. And this is actually where the idea of collocations comes into play.
Collocations, that sounds very technical. Tell me more.
So think of collocations as like word partnerships. They're
Okay.
these words that appear frequently together
Okay.
and they just sound right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And mastering do and make is all about recognizing these common pairings.
So it's not even enough to just know like the definition of the word,
Yeah,
but it's like which words does it usually hang out with?
exactly. Think about it. Make time versus do time.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Make time means to find a way to fit something into your schedule.
Right.
But do time, we were talking about that earlier, that implies a prison sentence.
Very different.
Very different. The right verb pairing just clicks.
Yeah, it does. It just sounds right.
Yeah.
It's almost like learning a new dance move or something.
Okay, I like that.
Like at first you're thinking about it really consciously, like step by step,
Right.
but then eventually it just becomes so natural that you don't even have to think about it.
You're just flowing.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And just like with dancing, the more you practice, the more natural those do and make choices will become.
So really, for someone who's listening who maybe wants to master these verbs,
Yeah.
it's about immersing yourself in real English.
Absolutely. Listen for those word pairings.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how do and make are used in different situations.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to like play around with it. You know what I mean?
So it's about embracing that messiness,
Yes, exactly.
the quirks of English.
It's all part of the fun.
It is. Speaking of embracing the messiness, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners as they continue on their do and make adventures?
Yeah, I love that idea of giving ourselves permission to play with the language a little bit, you know?
Exactly. Like, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah,
Even
like that's how we learn.
it's true. So as we're wrapping up our deep dive into the world of do and make,
Yeah.
I want to kind of turn the tables a bit here
Yeah.
and ask, like, what about you listening?
Yeah, yeah. What surprised you
Yeah.
about some of these examples? Or
Yeah.
like maybe there's a do or make tearing that you've always struggled with.
Totally. Yeah, like we would love to hear from you
Yeah.
because ultimately language isn't about following all these rules. It's about like how you make it work for you.
It's about communication, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Really?
Oh, yeah. English is full of these verb pairs
Okay.
that seem really simple on the surface.
Yeah.
But then when you start to dig a little deeper,
Right.
like, whoa, there's a lot more going on here.
It gets kind of complicated.
It does.
Yeah.
So think about like,
Yeah, what other like verb pairs?
yeah, or like what are some other ones that you've encountered
Yeah.
that have maybe tripped you up a little bit?
Yeah, that made you stop and think.
Yes.
Like, what's the deal with those two?
Exactly.
Yeah. So keep exploring,
Yeah. Keep having fun with it.
keep questioning,
Yeah.
and just enjoy this crazy language that we speak.
Exactly.
That's so expressive and interesting. And
It really is.
yeah, and thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, this is fun.